Hey there, my name is Angel. Welcome back to my channel. So you can probably tell by the background I'm not in my house, but I am dog sitting today. So I thought I would also film some videos because my friend's house that I'm at right now is pretty aesthetically pleasing, and yeah, I don't get good lighting like this in my apartment. Today I wanted to share with you my October wrap up because I actually read quite a bit, and I definitely started to get more heavily into the smutty short written works field. I have a feeling for the rest of the year, if I continue to read that type of book, it'll definitely mean my wrap-ups are kind of long. I read so many books. October was absolutely full for me. Aside from reading, I also had a lot of trips and things. I had my mom visiting. She doesn't really visit that often because she lives out in Florida. And then my best friend and I, we actually went to a cabin. We went to this like cabin on a flower farm for the weekend, and we had a lot of fun there. And I did actually get a lot of reading done there. I didn't think I would, but she's kind of like an early to bed kind of person, and so I pretty much stayed up like hours after her reading. And then we also had my and Jose's 7-year anniversary, so we did some stuff for that. Like, it was just a jam-packed month. So the first book that I read this month was actually one of our Patreon book club picks, Dowry Blood by S.T. Gibson, and I actually read the majority of this during live streams. I had it as an audiobook, and this is a horror, a little bit smutty book, and it's also kind of like a classic retelling of Dracula and his wife. And I really did love this one. It was unexpectedly steamy. There was a lot of like sex scenes in here, and it was very like lusty and very sexy because I feel like that's something that's often portrayed in books about vampires, is that they are very like sexual creatures, and I thought that was a really interesting interpretation. I also read the next 2 volumes of Zom 100. I believe I started this in September and talked to you guys about it a little bit, but Zom 100 is a manga series about this character who is working like a really bad 9-to-5. If anything, like they actually have them working many overnights just by the sheer peer pressure of people wanting to get work done. And what ends up happening is that he goes home after one of these long shifts and he wakes up and the zombie apocalypse has happened. And so now he is creating a bucket list of things that he wants to do before he dies, theoretically. But it's very comical with a lot of gore in there. I also finally read Be Not Far From Me by Mindy McGinnis, and this was one that Michaela had suggested I read a long time ago. This one I had also heard like all over BookTube. It is a book about a girl who is out, I think, like camping with a bunch of her friends or her boyfriend, and one of the people that comes unexpectedly is kind of their friend but also her boyfriend's ex. And she is kind of like just going through the woods to go to the bathroom, I think, and she stumbles across her boyfriend sleeping with the ex, and she ends up like running away because she's like, oh my god, like what the frick is happening? And then she trips and falls down a ravine pretty much, and it's the story of her like surviving through this. It's like an active survival book, which is something that I wasn't expecting, and more of a YA contemporary. If you're not into the more sci-fi active apocalypse or active survival situation book that I usually talk about, this might be more up your alley because it is more contemporary and realistic. After that, I finally read Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This is one of those like BookTube darling kind of books where everybody talks about it, everybody's read it except me. And I put it off for so long, and then when I finally read Aiden Thomas's other book, I didn't like it, and so I put off reading this book even more, but I ended up loving it. I feel like once we get the introduction of one of our secondary characters, it really made the story for me. This is about a Latinx trans boy, and he is in this world of brujas, but he wants to be a brujex and a brujo more specifically. You're seeing him struggle with his family, parts of his family accepting him as a brujo, and then there's this other struggle that was much more important to me personally, aside from the family stuff. In order to prove himself as a brujo, he accidentally like links himself to this other character, and this is a spirit, someone who has passed, and he's also his age, but he's a little bit older and very attractive. I think I saw this as more of a romance than what it was, which is very fantastical. Then one of the books that I read and finished when I was actually on our vacation with my friend was called Good Deeds by Kathryn Moon. I had read another book with Wheezy by Kathryn Moon, and I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. And then this one is about a girl who is in space, and she's on a planet where she is scavenging. Her race of people is kind of like in that Omega-verse scenario where they go into heat and they need to bond with someone so that they can go through their heat together with them. And so she is unexpectedly having her first heat when she lands on this planet to do scavenging. And so she's trying to figure out a way to not bond with someone because she doesn't want to go into the stereotype that her species does, which is bonding with someone, and then like the male is very much like in power of the situation. And so she stumbles across this very like broken down, rundown complex of these like android robot type creatures that are all broken in some way, and she makes a deal with the head of this establishment that if she helps fix them, she will be able to go through her heat, and ultimately, like, it's a smutty book, so she will have sex with them in exchange for fixing them and helping them be more of a lucrative sex house. And I love this book so much. After that, I signed up for Kindle Unlimited because I realized a lot of these smutty books and a lot of these like weird monster romances are on Kindle Unlimited for free. And so if you don't know about Kindle Unlimited, I'm not really going to go into it too much, but you basically pay a monthly fee to Amazon and you get access to a crap load of books, and they're mostly romance. So the first one I read was weird. I will admit that. It was a monster book, and it was a lot weirder than I went into thinking it was going to be. This was called Ensnared by Tiffany Roberts, and this is a spider, anthropomorphized Spider-Man romance book. But to be honest, like, the world building is really the heavy hitter in the first half of the book, because you're learning about all of these like very insectoid customs and traditions and this like hive mind scenario, and our main character is kind of an outcast from this hive of spiders. He stumbles across what is a like downed spaceship, and what you don't realize is that humans are the same size as these anthropomorphized spiders, which is terrifying to think about. That quickly develops into like him taking in this human as a pet almost in his mind, and he develops a relationship of a sexual nature with her. It was weird. It's weirder than you think it's going to be, and I had to really get myself into a different headspace to get into this book because it was so descriptive. There are several sequels. I don't think I'm going to read the next ones just because I wasn't entirely on board for this one. I see where they were going, but I feel like this author was like so heavy with the sci-fi and the world building and the character building that by the time you get to this like sexual relationship and these really intense sex scenes, I was like thrown, because I was like, whoa, 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 oh, this is a smutty book, but you built it up for like 200 pages to be something different. And so I was thrown for a loop. After that, I went back to another Kathryn Moon book. This was Baby and the Late Night Howlers. This was about another like beta omega alpha type of relationship. And this was actually a series. I think I read several of them this month. This one is about a girl who is develops into an omega late in life, and so she goes and she has to find a group of alphas to like take her in, and she's going to have a relationship with them, and they're all going to be like a polyamorous type of partnership, obviously with a lot of sex. Falls in with a group of like bikers, this like motorcycle club, and all of them are like more rugged than what people were expecting her to fall into, but she's like all about them, and they all are so well characterized. But I will admit, there's like 15 people in this freaking book, and you have to like make a character map to see like who's who, because they are all well characterized, but it was so tangled, and like because she doesn't spend time with everyone the same amount, I was getting lost all the time. Kickstarted my interest in this type of series. And again, I really love this author's writing, and I feel like she has a great way of making characters different. So I'm definitely going to like reread some of the books by her, because I feel like I definitely missed some of the characters, and I missed like the bonds that were created. And then I read a few horror smut books because I wanted to do that horror video where I talked about Halloween smut. And the first one was Scream for Us by Molly Doyle. I thought this one was really good, but I feel like I wanted more, and I feel like that's the whole point of like a short novella. It was really good to a point, and then I feel like there was more story to be had, and it was sacrificed at the expense of having just a lot of smut. So that's where the smut kind of like gave it a negative connotation. But obviously, if you want to hear more about that and the other ones I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes, I do have a separate video for that. I also read a newer release, and this was Trapped, a paranormal erotic novella by Shae Sanders, and this one I found really fun as well. This is about a woman who goes to a Halloween party. It's like a haunted house treasure hunt, but she gets locked into a room where this demonic kind of character comes and helps her enact some sort of revenge on her ex who she's still getting over. It was fun, but again, very short, and I feel like some of the revenge aspects were really not up my alley for me. And then Games We Play fed right into that like mask kink thing that I like to read about, and it was very fun. It's about this woman who goes and interviews a streamer who always is wearing a mask while he streams, but a lot of what he streams is more him like degrading and talking to his Twitch follower. The interviewer gets really interested in that, and he goes, well, if you'd like I can kind of show you how I live my life, and we can play this game where we have this sexual interaction for like just one night only. That part is good, and then it morphs into more of a mafia story afterward, which was really unexpected. So that part I wasn't as into or interested in, so I wish that that was kind of cut out, but I am still interested because there's gonna be a sequel to this. I'm pretty sure it's not the same characters, but I'm interested to see where it goes. Still going, I have a few more books that I read. So I also finished The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. In the end, I did not like this as much as some of the other ones that I've read. This is about a woman who is part of a support group of final girls. Somebody starts to pretty much like pick off the final girls, starts to like harm them or hunt them down. And our main character is trying desperately to get away, but also really trying to pinpoint like what it is, like whose killer is it, because some of the killers are still loose. The narrator is super unreliable, and I feel like too much was revealed too slowly about her, and so I hate not being able to trust our narrator, especially because I feel like I should be on their side, and I just didn't give a crap about her for the most part. After that, I continued that series by Kathryn Moon, so I read Lola and the Millionaires Part 1 and 2. This is about a character who has gone through a lot of trauma, a lot of sexual trauma. So she's actually not an Omega, she's a Beta, and she still falls in with this group of a lot of like alphas that are interested in her, but because there are two parts, it's kind of more of a slow burn. She falls into this group that I think is like 5 alphas or 4 alphas, and not all of them, they're not as intense as in the Howlers one. They're a lot more patient and a lot more like developed into this male-male relationship with one another. And so Lola really has a lot of time to develop her own relationship with them, as well as like boundaries, how she wants to be intimate with all of them. And I felt like it was really sweet. There's a lot of interesting workplay dynamics because she ends up working for a company that 2 of the other ones also work at. And so it's a little bit of office romance as well as like the other Omega stuff going on. And then a random one thrown in here that is not smutty or romance. This was Way of the House Husband Volume 6. I've talked about it before, but Way of the House Husband is a really interesting manga series that they've actually turned into a Netflix show. And in this series, we are dealing with a retired Yakuza leader, and he has retired. He lives with his wife and cat now, and he is a house husband, so he takes care of like the cooking, the cleaning, grocery shopping, all that stuff, while his wife works at an office job, I believe, still. And it's just super sweet and funny. And back to 2 more smutty ones before some other things. I read Jack, which is by Layla Fae, and this was a very fantastical book about a witch who does like tarot card readings, and she decides that she wants to cast a spell to try to find a partner because she feels like she just wants to have sex at this point. She doesn't even care about a relationship. She just has been inactive in that way for so long that she really needs something. And so she casts a spell, doesn't believe it's going to do anything, and then she ends up having this man in her house who has a pumpkin for a head, and he's like ripped, and of course he's like very dominant, and he's telling her like he's gonna take care of her, and he's been watching her for all this time. A lot of weird stuff happens with like things tasting interesting, and it has a happily ever after, which I don't always call these out because it's a very odd happily ever after. Yeah, but the steamy stuff before that point I was really into, and I felt like it was really funny at times. It was definitely not meant to be like a super serious smutty book like some of the other Halloween type erotica is. Editing angel here. I did realize I skipped a book that I read in October, and that was Skin by Aveda Weiss. This is the author of Feed, which is one of Wheezy's, if not their favorite freaking book. This is a short horror, sexy novella I can't speak. And it is about a woman who has this ability where when they touch someone, they can see their memories and like really weirdly bond with them. And so what they do is they actually use this ability to touch objects, and they're hired out to help if something is missing in very weird situations. They also have a bodyguard who is a gargoyle, and so their skin is like pretty much impenetrable unless they choose for it not to be. And they have wings, and they're very huge and menacing. They end up kind of turning it into more of a sexual relationship within their friendship / work partnership. And it was very steamy. You get to see what happens when the main character does touch someone and how that affects their memories, their ability to like just function, as well as during sex, what that does, which was very interesting. And then the very last book that I read for October was Chainsaw Man Volume 1. And this is a horror manga about a guy. He is really living off this relationship with someone who pays him to collect things. And he has this tiny little monster creature, this little demon who is a chainsaw creature. And one day they get thrown into a dumpster because they've been pretty much like murdered, and they fuse, and now he is Chainsaw Man. He has the ability of his little chainsaw demon creature. So that's it. I read a lot in October. Looking over those all now with you, it's kind of overwhelming. I didn't realize it was quite as hefty of a list, but I'm glad that I got it out of the way now instead of doing like another end of the year wrap up. So let me know in the comments if you made it this far in the video. First of all, leave me some sort of like pumpkin emoji, but also let me know if you had a favorite book you read this month, or if any of the books I talked about in this video are things that you might check out. But again, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye.